Now, the transactional annotation can be placed on interfaces, classes, or both class and interface methods. But Spring recommends that you only annotate concrete classes and methods of concrete classes with the AtTransactional annotation, as opposed to annotating interfaces. You certainly can place the AtTransactional annotation on an interface or an interface method, but this works only as you would expect it to if you are using interface-based proxies. The fact that Java annotations are not inherited from interfaces means that if you are using class-based proxies, that is, proxy target class set to true or the weaving-based aspect mode set to aspect J, then the transaction settings are not recognized by the proxying and weaving infrastructure, and the object will not be wrapped in a transactional proxy, which would be decidedly bad. What does that mean? This is about the transaction configuration in Spring. When using XML-based configuration, there will be a line like the following in the config file, which would enable annotation-driven transaction management. These are the settings or the attributes which can be set on this tag. There is Transaction Manager, the mode, the proxy target class, and the order. Since we are using Java-based configuration, let's look at the annotation which would be used to provide the same configuration as above. So it is the @enable transaction management annotation, and it has these three optional elements: mode, order, and proxy target class. Regardless of the mode of configuration, that is either XML or Java-based configuration, so long as we have not specifically set these attributes, the default values apply. So let's look at each one. The proxy target class could be either true or false. The default value is false, in which case JDK interface-based proxies are created. If this attribute is set to true, then cglib proxies will be used, which are class-based, and therefore any AtTransactional annotations on interfaces will be ignored. Now the mode. There are two values that can be applied to the mode attribute: proxy and aspect J. The default value of mode attribute is proxy, which processes annotated beans to be proxied using Spring's AOP framework, which would proxy interfaces annotated with AtTransactional. But when the mode is set to aspect J, the interfaces annotated with AtTransactional will be ignored because the aspect that interprets AtTransactional annotations is the annotation transaction aspect. When using this aspect, you must annotate the implementation class and/or methods within that class, not the interface, if any, that the class implements. Aspect J follows Java's rule that annotations on interfaces are not inherited. So, as mentioned earlier, because this is a Spring Boot application, transaction management is enabled by the framework without me having to add the @enable transaction management annotation. So that means I'm using the default settings for proxy target class and mode. So as of now, I have no restrictions as to where to place the AtTransactional annotation, but it is safer to follow the recommendation in case those need to be changed.